Okay, so that was my bad. Embedded bloopers there, but really, it was more than a blooper. It was like my train of thought got derailed. We had 7 strings there. So this is the 6 string pattern. When you warp the top 2 over, okay, we can not worry about this, but we do want to keep the pattern names there. Because even though they're warped over, you can still identify the patterns. Now the S3L and the S2L are composed of 2 strings and 3 strings. These individual letters are the individual string patterns. These are the elements. Okay, so I mean, these are like the elementary, these are like the molecules, the C, G, D, A, and the E. Okay, the letters then themselves would be like protons, neutrons, and electrons, the notes. And these names here would be like compounds, like H2O or something like that, kind of thing, or compounds that have water and something else, whatever. They'd be mixtures. So if you wanted to look at it that way. So here's our C build, and I'm just saying that it pays to know that what we have here is, and we still have a fairly well preserved S3L. It's been warped over, the S3S rather. It's been warped over. So this was the original 3, 2, 3, 5, 6 root 2. Got warped over. Then we have half of the S2L left. It gets messy, but we got a perfect S2L down here. So that's one thing about the C box, that we have a nice S2L that we start out with. You know. So these are the building blocks of pentatonic scales. And then that C shape right up on top. You have the repeat there of that top string, just happens to work out that way. Okay, so we're looking at it one more time. Remember the placement of the 5 and the 6, okay, is the middle of an S3S there. Whoop. We're okay with the color. The placement of the 5 and the 6 is in the middle of an S3S right there. That's where it lines up. But these tabs are extremely important when lining up these guys right here, right? These guys with this aliasing going on. We call it aliasing. It's kind of a pattern match there. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So that's important. The 4 and the 7 helps line up the S3L with the S2L as it goes directly on top of it. All right, but so that's easy, right? It's easy to match the 2 4-string patterns, 2 4 fret patterns. You just go right on top of one another, right on top of one another, right on top of one another. 5 and 6 is the only one to know that has to be part of this S3S here, and you just got to know how the pattern stacks like that. It won't stack a different way unless there's a tuning warp. So if there's a tuning third, then you have to move part of it over. So it'd be like you'd have to move this over 1 tuning third, like that. 1 fret nut rather. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? But I do. I do know I'm talking something, So this is the pattern as it's moved over. Now it's got to line up. Okay, it's got to line up. Now what are we looking at? We've warped this part of the pattern over. It really is kind of weird. That's kind of a weird warp. I don't think that's right. I think we warped it over too much. So let's do it again. So we're going to warp over this part of the pattern so that the 7, so that, okay, all right, let's just do the whole 7. we're going to make a fretboard as we did before. So suppose we're doing this, which is your E-shaped fretboard. Now we're going to warp over. Now we know where we're at, right? Oh, we know where we're at. Oh, good. Oh, good. We're going to warp this over. All right. In cursor mode. Now we warp it over. It seems like this is the issue today. Just warp it over one. Okay, so right there, that makes the tuning, that makes the pattern match the guitar's tuning. So once you learn the pattern, of course for the bottom four strings, the pattern's the same. There's been no warp over for these bottom four strings. It'd be the key of F. It'd be 7 root 2 3 4 5 6 7 root. Okay? 2 3 4, 4 being that B flat. Okay? And then we warp over for the 5 6. C D is the 5 and the 6 in F, and the 7th is E, leading tune, there's your F. Okay, so that was kind of worth it. At least we got to play a little bit. So that's the story with the pattern stack. No matter where we start, we just grab 6 strings from the pattern stack. Okay, no matter where we start here, we can make a cage. We can make some kind of cage. We could grab 6 strings from the 3. We can grab 6 strings starting from the 6 for the G cage. We can grab 6 strings. Top and bottom would be the 2 for the D cage. We can grab 6 strings top and bottom from the 5, 6 for the A cage, and we can grab what we just did, 6 strings top and bottom from the 7th for the E cage. So there's your 5 cages, and then you warp over the top 2 strings of each one to get what the guitar actually is. So for the C cage, you have the warping over of those top 2 strings. For the A cage, you have the warping over of these top 2 strings. For the G cage, you have the warp over of these top 2 strings. So this whole top 2 strings, the whole thing is warped over. When I used to make these fretboards, I saw myself doing this. So the actual pattern, if you wanted to treat this entire fretboard, and this is a fretboard, in other words, it's lined up just like your guitar, you can play it right off here. But if you wanted this to be a massive pattern, if I wanted this to be just a gigantic pattern board in all P4's tuning, okay, then I could take the whole top 2 strings, because that's just like tuning your strings right there. Take the whole top 2 strings and tune them to a 4th like that. I didn't get to line it up. That would have been fun. But sometimes they line up in the middle anyway, because the more frets that you're changing, you know, the more you've got to make sure they all line up. So this is your pattern stack. You see how we've got 3 to 3 here. It goes over 1 fret. So this is all P4's tuning, and I've done this with my guitar. Let's put it back. I've done this with my guitar where I've actually tuned it. And when you do that, when you actually tune the top 2 strings to be in perfect 4th, everything's in E shape. Your E shape's in E shape, but then your A shape's in E shape, and then your D is in E shape also. See, because these top 2 strings aren't brought up where the D is, and with the A shape, okay, the top string of the A isn't brought up equal where that A is. So everything is in E shape chord when you have all P4's tuning. So it's important, and we've covered this, and we're going to move on from here, from the 10-string pattern stack. So that's how we get the bottom strings in the string shapes. That's how they get their letter shape.